The story opens in a snowy town, where the girl wakes up, folds her blanket, and walks toward the door. The sound rouses a boy with reddish, vampire-like eyes, who quietly tells her not to close the door behind her. During breakfast, she reminds him about not sleeping in the proper place, but noticing he isn't eating and instead looks at her angrily with dull eyes before turning away, she becomes confused. She asks whether he doesn't like the food or simply has no appetite. When he doesn't respond, she cheerfully offers him candies or whatever he prefers, but he remains silent on the other side. While washing the dishes, she grows annoyed by getting no response from him. Because of the cold, her hands turn blue, and she holds them tightly before stepping outside into the lawn, where the boy still sits in that same angry pose. She places her freezing hands on his neck, eagerly waiting for his reaction, but he suddenly jerks away, his red eyes glaring with anger. Trying to understand him, she complains about his attitude, despite how much he relies on her. Grabbing him by the back of his collar to make him eat something, her hand accidentally hits the coffee mug, which falls to the ground and breaks. She bends down to pick up the broken pieces but accidentally cuts her finger. She quickly puts it to her mouth, but grows puzzled when the boy looks at her with wide, red, hungry eyes. When she glances back at him, he immediately turns his face away and stays silent, even as she asks what's wrong. Holding the broken pieces in a bag, she approaches him worriedly, but becomes upset when he loudly tells her not to touch him. Frustrated, she storms off, throws the trash into the bin, while the snow continues to fall heavily outside. Afterward, she takes a bath, but her finger starts bleeding again. She covers it with a bandage, drinks a warm beverage, and dries her hair with a towel. Entering the boy Fusuke's room, she becomes alarmed to find him lying unconscious on the floor. She quickly lifts him onto the bed, turns on the heater, and calls the hospital, only to grow more anxious when she learns it's half an hour away by car. But she grows puzzled when Fusuke suddenly sits up, completely ignoring her shock. His eyes turn dark red and strange, and his sharp vampire-like teeth appear as he pushes her onto the floor. Angrily, she shouts for him to stop, but without listening, he bites her hand so hard that blood spurts out. Furious, she pushes him back, yelling at him for his strange behavior and demanding to know what he really wants. He glares at her, his eyes filled with frustration, and noticing the blood still dripping from her hand, he grabs it and opens his mouth. But when she licks the wound herself, he becomes even angrier, struggling to break free by pushing and kicking. Being just a kid, he fails, and she holds him firmly, asking coldly how long he plans to keep resisting. She whispers a reminder of her earlier warning, but when he still gives no answer, she finally tries to stand, realizing he seems to care nothing for himself. But she grows puzzled when he suddenly grabs her by the collar, pulling her back toward him, and softly begs her for her blood. Seeing her faint smile, he quickly sits up beside her, holding her hand as he begins to lick the wound. Feeling a strange sense of relief, he happily gulps her blood and keeps licking her finger while she watches him with a gentle smile. Then, smiling faintly, she quietly admires this unusual yet tender moment. But when he continues drinking, she stops him from going any further. After bandaging her hand to prevent infection, she warns him not to bite her again without her permission. But when he stays silent, turning his face away, her heart sinks. Sadly, she tells him that he isn't the only one who lost Ruri-san. A heavy silence fills the room as he just clutches his small frog plush tightly. Suddenly, she sneezes from the cold, while outside, snow continues to blanket the entire town. The next day, as she takes her car out of the garage, she's on the phone with her mother, who angrily demands to know her location and work status. Seeing her daughter's silent irritation, the mother brings up her sister's wedding and yells that she should at least find a man if she can't get a job. As her mother keeps shouting, she hangs up and starts the car. Glancing at Fusuke, still tightly holding the stuffed frog, she recalls her mother's words about getting a man. When they arrive at the market and he refuses to get out of the car, she snaps at him to move, saying no one will care how he looks. Passers-by glance at her suspiciously, but she ignores them. Taking a deep breath, she smiles faintly and reminds him they came only to buy his food. Grabbing his hand, she tries to lead him out, but when he stays stubborn, she walks off angrily, warning that he won't get anything with that attitude. As expected, he immediately gets up and tries to hide inside her long coat, which she irritably points out only makes him stand out more. When they reach the cereal and cookie aisle, she tells him he can pick anything he wants. But when he only stares with that same strange, angry expression, she guides him instead to the kids section, where children excitedly choose snacks. Even then, he refuses. She finally asks him to try a tomato ketchup sample. His face instantly lights up, and she hurriedly pulls him away, realizing that any red liquid seems to trigger his hunger. As they continue walking, a beautiful woman eyes them suspiciously, but the girl quietly keeps shopping for Fusuke. Suddenly, he clings to her from behind after seeing a little girl ask her mother for another candy, promising to share half with her. Watching the little girl and her mother, she smiles and tells Fusuke to at least act as mature as that child. When he suggests she should be nicer instead, she looks confused, wondering how much kinder she's supposed to be. After finishing their shopping, she decides to pay the bill and head home. At the counter, noticing her empty wallet, she tells him to wait there while she withdraws some cash. Seeing him still clinging to her, she quickly unties her jacket from him, promising to come back soon. Standing alone, tightly holding his stuffed toy, he looks around nervously at the crowd, struggling to keep himself calm. Meanwhile, at the ATM, she sighs in disappointment after realizing how little money she has left, deciding she'll cook at home next time to save. When she returns and finds Fusuke missing, worry floods her face. Someone tells her he went off somewhere without saying a word. Thanking them, she rushes around searching for him, and after finding nothing, she hesitantly steps into the men's restroom, offering an awkward smile to those inside. Seeing it empty, she comes back out, only to be shocked to find him sitting on the floor near the bench, his head bowed over the stuffed toy. She angrily shouts at him for going outside without her permission, but when he gives no response and only clutches his toy in fear, she falls silent, wondering why he came here. Then, noticing a nearby food stall, she smiles and buys a custard taiyaki, handing it to him while happily sharing that Ruri-san used to love eating it too, though it always tasted too sweet for her. Seeing him finally eat with some joy makes her feel relieved and content. After buying the rest of the groceries and placing them in the car, she finally asks if he's feeling better now. She advises him not to stay at home all the time, but is startled when he ignores her words, leans toward her, and with lifeless red eyes, asks for blood. When she yells at him in frustration, he protests that he follows everything she tells him to do, yet she still keeps leaving him behind. His mouth opens, fanged and hungry, but before he can bite, she shouts for him to wait and hurriedly checks to make sure no one is watching. The moment she looks away, he sinks his teeth into her hand. She gasps, furious, scolding him for biting without permission. She quickly hides the mark on her dominant hand. As he gently licks the wound, she falls silent, wondering if this is his clumsy way of apologizing. Guilt nudges at her for abandoning him earlier. Lowering the car seat, she helps him lie back, placing a hand on his shoulder. Leaning closer, she offers him her bitten hand, and he opens his mouth, drinking from her as she drapes herself over him, covering him completely. The angle becomes uncomfortable, and she murmurs for him to pause so she can shift, or at least wait until they get home. Before he can answer, someone peeks through the car window. It's the same woman who had noticed them at the market, and to her shock, it's her sister. Arriving home with her bandaged hand and an irritated expression, Suzuka sits beside the equally annoyed Fusuke. Her sister, sitting comfortably with a shameless smile, offers a fake apology for troubling her by coming over. Suzuka, clearly annoyed, reminds her that she was the one who insisted on being brought home. Changing the topic, her sister casually asks about their mother. When Suzuka admits she hung up the call, explaining that their mother talks endlessly, her sister sighs and remarks that Suzuka is the one who always makes their mother angry. Then, glancing at the boy, she leans closer with a suspicious smile and asks if he's Suzuka's child. Fusuke instantly moves closer to Suzuka, who quickly corrects her, explaining that she's only taking care of him for someone else. Introducing herself cheerfully, Ryoko asks for his name, but seeing his frightened expression, Suzuka answers on his behalf. When Ryoko offers him some candy, Suzuka immediately interrupts, saying he doesn't like sweets. Worried, she watches as Ryoko approaches him with cookies, insisting she'll feed him herself. But just as she brings it near his mouth, Ryoko turns the snack away and eats it instead, making Suzuka smile faintly. Suzuka then calmly asks about Ryoko's visit. Ryoko proudly shows her the wedding invitation, and when Suzuka hesitates, saying she has no nice clothes to attend, Ryoko offers her own dress, saying she'll be wearing her wedding gown anyway. Then, as if remembering something, Ryoko suddenly asks whether Suzuka isn't working with the camera these days. Suzuka's expression dims as she quietly explains that living in a slum-like area makes it difficult. Taking another bite of her snack, Ryoko reminds her of the person she once admired, the one who inspired her to pursue that passion, but who later abandoned her. Seeing no response, only Suzuka's sad, distant gaze, Ryoko casually mentions that their mother has decided to throw out all of Suzuka's old things to clear her room. Anger flashes across Suzuka's face, and she immediately stands up and heads toward her storage room. Left alone, Ryoko shoots Fusuke a teasing smile. He sits stiffly, clutching his stuffed frog in fear. Trying to sound friendly, she asks to see his cute toy, but when he turns away in irritation, she leans in to snatch it herself. Laughing as he runs off, she calls after him that Suzuka's room is on the second floor. Fuzuk hurries upstairs, repeatedly glancing back before slipping into Suzuka's room. She notices and gently reminds him to knock before entering anyone's space. With a sigh, she tells him he can take anything he likes from the boxes. Their mother plans to throw them out anyway. Quietly, he chooses a small puzzle box. Suzuka, growing emotional, picks up a camera, her first gift from Ruri-san. Stroking it, she recalls how Ruri asked her to show photos every day and how excited she once was to do so. Hearing this, Fuzuk turns somber and moves closer, touching the camera with delicate fingers. Suzuka admits, with a faint smile, that after Ruri left, she didn't have the courage to use it anymore. He lowers his gaze and murmurs that his mother, Ruri, loved taking pictures too. Suzuka's eyes soften, a warm, knowing smile forming, realizing she had already understood that part of Ruri all along. She gets startled when he suddenly pushes his toy against her stomach, blurting out in irritation, asking if he wants something to eat. Both freeze as her sister cheerfully opens the door without knocking, and she snaps, reminding them to at least knock before entering. Teasing, Ryoka jokes about whether something inappropriate is going on, then holds up a few dresses, asking her to choose one she likes. As the day passes, she hands over the chosen dress and sits, sipping her drink, exhausted. Her eyes narrow when she notices him completely absorbed in the puzzle box. When he stays silent, only giving her his usual cold stare, she grows frustrated, grabs him by the collar, and scolds that he always talks about Ruri-san but never wants to talk to her. Exhausted, she lowers her head onto the table and drifts into sleep. When she wakes, she's confused to find all his stuffed toys placed beside her while he lies comfortably on his bed. She quietly covers him with a blanket and notes the solved Rubik's Cube. On Ryoko's wedding day, after getting ready, Suzuka gently combs his hair and smiles at his final look. But since he isn't used to formal clothes, he fidgets and stretches his outfit until she snaps at him to stop. Finally, after slinging the frog-shaped bag over his shoulder, they arrive at the reception hall where her parents are joyfully greeting guests. The moment her mother notices her, her expression hardens. She demands to know what Suzuka has been doing lately, and now reminded of her responsibilities, sharply orders her to come inside, warning they'll talk later. When her mother notices the boy clutching tightly to her side, she's shocked and bluntly asks if she had a child. Suzuka immediately clarifies that she's only taking care of him for someone else. Without arguing further, her mother assigns her to take Ryoko's wedding photos, saying she's good at it. Though hesitant, since she hasn't touched a camera in so long, she agrees, her thoughts interrupted when some old acquaintances recognize her and greet her warmly. As she takes the chance to step forward, she notices him looking exhausted from all the noise and crowd, clearly wanting to slip away. She quickly holds him back, softly promising that after the ceremony, he can have her blood or anything else he wants. The words calm him, and he quietly sits beside her, clutching his stuffed toy. When the announcement begins, Ryoko enters with a radiant smile, elegant in her gown, walking gracefully beside the groom. Mesmerized by her sister's beauty, she suddenly remembers her task, lifts the camera, and begins capturing each moment. Ryoko poses naturally, her smile glowing in every shot. Later, during the couple's presentation, she checks one of the photos, but pauses when she notices him staring suspiciously at the canvas decorations hanging from the ceiling. Curious, she asks if it's his first time seeing something like that. During the meal, everyone chats and laughs while enjoying their food. She happily savors the delicious dishes, while he, as usual, sits quietly without touching his plate. He suddenly stiffens when a small child tries to grab his stuffed toy, but the child's mother quickly pulls him back and apologizes. Then, recognizing Suzuka, she brightens with a cheerful smile and greets her warmly. Leaning toward the boy, she teasingly asks if he's Suzuka's son. Seeing her awkward, embarrassed smile, the woman laughs and praises her, recalling her name from a magazine as an amazing photographer. Then, holding her child close, she asks Suzuka to take a few pictures of them together. Although she hesitantly agrees, the photos she takes turn out blurry and cropped, leaving her disappointed in her own skill. After a while, she quietly returns to her chair and sets the camera on the table. Noticing him watching it with curious eyes, she picks it up again and begins showing him how to take good pictures. But when her shots come out imperfect, neither the woman nor the flowers clear, he teases her, and she shyly assures him the next one will be perfect. After the ceremony, her parents hand out gifts to all the guests, reminding them to open them at home. Meanwhile, her mother, worried, searches around for her and grows more anxious when she's nowhere to be found. Ryoko, cheerful as ever, shows her the camera Suzuka secretly left behind at their house, while their mother sighs in concern, wondering who exactly her daughter is taking care of. When they return home, exhausted, she washes her face and sits down, holding Fusuke's baby photo album. The handwritten notes from Ruri-san, filled with gentle words and little memories, make her eyes grow misty. The album traces his life, from childhood moments to nights spent gazing at the planets, even showing the faint reveal of his vampire teeth. She gets startled when he suddenly enters her room, his presence silent but intense. Ignoring her attempt to take his picture, he quietly demands her blood, keeping her promise. She raises her hand first, and as he sinks his fangs into her skin to drink, she quickly lifts the camera and captures his image. It's a rainy morning. After waking up, he quietly slides open the door and steps into her room. Seeing her still asleep, he moves closer in worry and gently places his hand on her blanket, only to jump back in shock when she suddenly wakes. She smiles faintly, thinking he's up early today, but her expression changes when she realizes it's already 11:45 a.m. Rubbing her temples, she murmurs that she feels dizzy and tired, then forces herself to get up and make the bed. As she straightens the blanket, the room seems to spin around her, but she steadies herself and finishes anyway. Still uneasy, she glances at him and asks if he has any allergies before turning on the heater. As usual, he stays silent, sitting on the couch, his legs drawn close, quietly squeezing something in his hands, lost in thought. Still struggling to steady herself, she goes into the kitchen. After frying some eggs and cutting the vegetables, she prepares breakfast. Though exhausted, she carries the tray to his room and knocks on the door. When he only peeks out from behind it, she frowns suspiciously and tells him to open it properly. Setting the tray on the table, she tells him to eat whatever he likes, mentioning with a faint smile that her father, who is a chef, taught her this simple recipe. She jokes softly that it should taste at least a little better than usual, but noticing he hasn't eaten since last night and still refuses to take even a single bite, her patience snaps. She scolds him sharply, telling him to stop acting like a child and try to be a little more mature. While doing the laundry, though exhausted, she suddenly remembers how he once collapsed from malnourishment. Worried, she hurries back to his room. He's still sitting on the bed, silent and motionless as always. She exhales in frustration, then quietly rolls up her sleeve and, without meeting his eyes, offers him her wrist, her blood. But when he turns his face away again, refusing, her patience snaps. Leaning closer, she scolds him sharply, asking why he's still resisting. Does he really want to faint again? He clenches his fists, trembling, trying desperately to suppress the craving that burns inside him. Watching him fight it only deepens her frustration. Finally, as he lies down and covers his face with both hands, she breaks down, her voice shaking as tears fall. She cries that because he never talks to her, she knows nothing about what he wants, nothing at all. Her words shock him, but before he can respond, her body suddenly slumps beside him. Panicked, he jumps up and shakes her shoulders, calling her name, but she doesn't move. His eyes widen in fear. He snatches up the phone, stares at it without knowing what to do, then sets it back down. He stands there, helpless, staring at her while the rain outside fills the heavy room with its cold, steady echo. Then remembering how, during her illness, her mother once asked him to bring a futon pillow, medicine box, and some water, hoping she would get better soon. He now does the same. He gathers everything, places it carefully near her, and sits down on the floor, worriedly squeezing his stuffed toy. After a long while, as the rain continues to fall, he rests his head on his hands and dozes off uneasily. When he notices some movement, he immediately stands up. Suzuka, feeling a little more comfortable, puts on her glasses, but seeing him so close startles him. Then, noticing all the things placed beside her and realizing he brought them for her, she truly appreciates it and softly thanks him. Then, seeing that he wants to say something, she gently asks him to speak, but his usual silence makes her sad again. Suddenly, he murmurs that all the food he eats tastes bland, only blood feels sweet, so he drinks it all. She's startled at first, then exhales in relief, realizing his behavior wasn't caused by anything she did wrong. Remembering something, she removes her glasses and, with a curious tone, asks about how he happily ate the taiyaki before turning his face away. He admits softly that his mother loved it, so he thought it would taste good. Worried, she asks if he has any illness, but seeing his uncertainty, she sighs sadly, wishing she could ask Ruri-san about it. Then, recalling their visit to the doctor, who also found no solution, she feels helpless and slowly collapses back onto the bed. Exhaling softly, she smiles and apologizes. It feels like the first time they've talked normally. Looking at his still cold face, she gently advises him to eat properly for better nutrition, reminding him how weak he looks. Then, remembering something, she suddenly asks why he refuses to drink her blood, whether it's because he worries for her health. But once again, he gives no response, only that same distant expression. She sighs and hides under the blanket, pretending to sleep. Seeing this, he immediately approaches with concern, but when she peeks and smiles teasingly, he turns away angrily, apologizing softly. She sits up, checks her fever, drinks some water, and decides to rest again to recover soon. As she wishes him good night, he nods slightly, relieved. Taking his toy from the box, he quietly starts playing on his own, while she watches with a faint, blushing smile, then finally drifts into peaceful sleep. The next morning, as she wakes him, she cheerfully offers her hand for him to drink her blood. When he immediately refuses, she smiles softly and asks if there's something he wants to share instead. Suddenly, her phone rings. It's Ryoko. Annoyed, she answers the call, placing her hand on her back while talking, but she suddenly cries out in pain when he unexpectedly bites her hand and starts drinking her blood. On the other end, Ryoko, hearing the noise, asks what's going on. Forcing a smile, Suzuka quickly dismisses it and changes the topic. After ending the call, she angrily scolds him for biting her without asking first. Yet, as her voice fades, she hears the sound of children playing outside on their way to school. Exhaling softly, she thinks to herself that after all, he's a student too. The following morning, Suzuka visits her parents' house to return Ryoko's dress. Just as she turns to leave, her mother angrily calls her back inside. Now seated together in the living room, her mother glares sharply, noticing Fusuke sitting quietly beside Suzuka. With irritation, she demands to know how long Suzuka plans to keep taking care of him. Forcing a nervous smile, Suzuka hesitantly explains that he's simply very attached to her. But as her mother observes the boy's cold, distant stare, she sighs heavily, clearly unconvinced and increasingly concerned about him. Sensing that Suzuka might reveal too much, Ryoko quickly steps in to ease the tension. With a gentle smile, she invites Fusuke to come upstairs, showing him toys and dice to distract him. Even their mother kindly offers him some candies, but he doesn't move an inch. Worried, Suzuka leans close and whispers softly, warning him to follow their lead if he doesn't want to be separated from her. Seeing him suddenly stand up and climb the stairs, everyone falls silent in surprise. Ryoko, still smiling, encourages them to continue their talk and follows him upstairs. Their mother, meanwhile, gently offers Suzuka her favorite candies and, with a worried tone, asks if she's been eating properly. As Fusuke climbs the stairs, he glances back nervously at Ryoko, following him, but remains quiet. Back in the living room, Suzuka sits with a heavy heart. She finally confides that the person who had always supported her, someone very dear, passed away just last month. Her mother's expression softens with sorrow and concern. Gently, Suzuka explains that the boy is that person's child. Meanwhile, upstairs, Ryoko tries to keep Fusuke busy with toys, while downstairs, their mother hesitantly asks about the boy's grandparents, since surely they must exist somewhere. Remembering the truth, Suzuka immediately grows tense and firmly refuses to send him to them, insisting that his grandparents are not good people. Her mother, growing angry, scolds her for being so careless, warning that refusing to hand the boy to his grandparents is no different from kidnapping Suzuka. Looking down sadly, explains that Ruri-san had severed ties with her own parents long ago, and they likely don't even know this child exists. Hearing that name, her mother exhales deeply, realizing who the boy is, yet still advises her not to hide him. She reminds Suzuka that raising a child is never easy. Caring for his needs, feeding him, and carrying all that responsibility alone will eventually wear her down. Then, with a soft sigh, she asks gently whether the boy is even happy staying with her. Meanwhile, upstairs, Fusuke watches the dice game intently. Ryoko, noticing his focus, playfully places one of the dice on his head and teases him, asking if he truly wants to stay with Suzuka. He says nothing, just bows his head slightly, causing all the dice to tumble to the floor. As he comes back down the stairs and reaches for the door handle, Ryoko quietly stops him. Curious, he peeks through the small opening where Suzuka is emotionally confessing that because of his presence, she's been able to move forward after Ruri-san's death, and that all she truly wants now is to make him happy. Her mother, however, raises her voice in frustration, scolding Suzuka for speaking so confidently about taking responsibility for a child when she doesn't even have a stable income. Tearfully, Suzuka insists she'll find a job soon, but just as she says this, she suddenly notices Fusuke standing at the door, watching them, and freezes in embarrassed silence. He sits quietly beside her when her mother gently asks about his schooling. Suzuka hesitantly refuses, explaining that he doesn't have the courage to talk to others. Her sister, cheerful as always, suggests they consider her husband Shinya-san's school. As the conversation ends, their mother sighs with concern, but kindly offers her help if Suzuka ever needs it. When they suggest staying for dinner, Suzuka initially declines but agrees after her sister excitedly mentions it's crab night. During dinner, while the maids serve the dishes, Ryoko watches in confusion as Fusuke sits silently beside Suzuka, barely eating or showing any joy despite the lively atmosphere. They all arrive at Shinya's place, with a cat quietly slipping in beside them. As they talk about the textbooks and supplies he'll need for school, the cat calmly pads past and curls up on the bed. While Suzuka carefully writes everything down in her notebook, keeping track of what's needed, everyone is taken aback, herself included, when Shinya casually asks his age, and he replies that he's 8 years old. Later, Suzuka heads to the market with Ryoko. While her sister focuses on her own shopping, Suzuka goes to the kids' study section, checking her list. They first stop by the backpack section, where the prices make her uneasy. But seeing other children happily picking theirs, she smiles and decides to let him try one. When he puts on the bag, his expression stays cold, but as she takes a picture to remember the moment, he hugs her tightly, nervous amid the busy crowd. They next stop at the school supplies section, where Suzuka carefully picks out the essentials. Moving to the clothing area, she holds up a crisp white shirt, smiling as she suggests he try something bright for a change. Instead of his usual dark colors, she sends him to the trial room and sits nearby, scrolling through her phone. But when he doesn't come out for a while, she peeks inside, only to find him sitting on the floor, clutching his stuffed toy, still in his old clothes. Shocked, she scolds him for not changing, and he quietly mutters that he already did. After finally buying his uniform, she sits in the waiting area, sipping her drink. Looking down, she sighs sadly about the pricey backpack, but when she notices Fusuke staring oddly at a man passing by, she gently stops him, warning that such behavior will make things harder for him at school. Before he can reply, Suzuka's phone rings. It's Ryoko, reminding her to finish shopping. As they walk together, Ryoko excitedly asks if she bought Fusuke a Randoseru backpack. When Suzuka sighs that it's too expensive, Ryoko, already expecting that, suggests borrowing one from a relative whose child just graduated. Suzuka agrees with a relieved smile. After dropping her sister off, Suzuka drives home, cheerfully promising Fusuke that she'll buy him his own backpack someday, but she's shocked when he refuses both the bag and the idea of going to school. Frustrated, she firmly insists that studying is important, especially to learn proper manners and make friends. Then, softening her tone, she teases that even if he makes friends and comes home late, she won't get angry. He just holds his stuffed toy tightly, his worried eyes fixed on her. Arriving home, Suzuka happily organizes all his school supplies and writes his name on them. Noticing him deeply focused on a dice board game, she walks over and, realizing he barely knows how to play, offers to join him. When he frowns, she playfully teases if he's scared of losing. They start playing, and she lets him roll first. After a while, when he keeps winning, she's stunned, wondering if he's genuinely skilled or just cheating. Deciding on a rematch, she gets annoyed when he calmly remarks that she's terrible at the game. Frustrated, she snaps back that he's just as terrible in real life too. The next day, while Fusuke is absorbed in a block puzzle, Suzuka talks on the phone about his school enrollment. Shinya apologetically explains that he's been working there since last year. Concerned, she asks about the Randoseru bag for Fusuke. Later, after finding the bag hidden, Suzuka angrily grabs him by the collar, scolding him for keeping it secret just to avoid school. When he quietly admits he's afraid of the crowded classrooms, she softens and explains that people are everywhere in life. Seeing him still frozen, she kneels, gently urging him to make friends, so he won't be alone after she's gone. Realizing her harsh words, she feels guilty as he silently walks away, leaving her in tears. Finally, at school, Professor introduces Fusuke to the class, mentioning he once studied there. When no one remembers him, Shinya adds that he's rejoining after a long break. The students gather around him, curious about him and his stuffed animal. When one tries to take it, saying toys aren't allowed at school, his strange, dead expression startles them. Helplessly, he squeezes his toy as the teacher tells everyone to sit for the lecture. Back at Shinya's place, Suzuka searches for a job on her laptop, glancing sadly at the clock. Teased by Ryoko, she finally applies for a photo studio vacancy, unsure if she'll do well. The sisters talk while the cat plays. Ryoko asks if she has any issues. Suzuka admits she's been harsh with Fusuke, and Ryoko suggests apologizing, but Suzuka insists he wouldn't admit anything as a kid. Shocked, Ryoko jokes he's her boyfriend. Later, Suzuka waits at the school gate. Fusuke comes out, looking down, ignoring her warm smile, and silently, angrily sits in the car. At home, after drinking quickly, she finds him asleep on the floor with his stuffed toy. She exhales, gathers courage, and confesses she didn't mean to scare him, only worried about him. Before she finishes, he quietly stands and leaves, left alone. She sighs, rests her head on the table, and looks at his old photo with Ruri, feeling guilty for not making him happy. The next day, he sadly tells her she'll pick him up in the evening, but once again, he silently heads toward the school without a word. Later, she takes pictures of restaurant products at her job. Around 3 p.m., as her shift ends, she leaves, and the employee waves happily, hoping to see her tomorrow. At school, during break, everyone is playing, but Fuzuk sits quietly on a chair, head on the table, clutching his toy and watching the clock. Around 4 p.m., she finally arrives to pick him up. Back home, he silently does his homework while she works on her laptop. The following day, at lunchtime, everyone happily enjoys their meal with friends. But he remains silent, squeezing his toy. Even the sensei tries to make him comfortable. Suzuka, meanwhile, struggles to take a few pictures before finally relaxing. Later, at her workplace, she arrives, sets her bag on a chair, and tells the owner she's back, while he reads the newspaper distractedly, nodding absent-mindedly, yet proudly. That day, while taking pictures of the new menu, the owner rudely stops her, saying the existing photos are enough since customers already know the dishes, and taunts that anyone can take good pictures these days. She smiles awkwardly, embarrassed, but inwardly annoyed. Back at home, she angrily scolds his boss, blaming his wife for making him upset all the time, then turns around with a headache and falls asleep. He watches her sadly, feeling sleepy after the long night. The next morning, he wakes up and notes Suzuka leaving. She bids him goodbye as it won't work out. Frustrated, he tries to grip her, but the cloth tears in pieces. Suddenly, waking with a heavy heart, he exhales, holding his head, realizing it was just a dream. He quietly steps into her room and, seeing her sleeping comfortably, feels a wave of relief. At exactly 7 a.m., she groggily wakes to the alarm, annoyed. She turns it off, puts on her glasses, and enters his room to wake him. Seeing him sleeping comfortably, she affectionately lies down for a few seconds, watching him with sympathy, then stands and moves outside. He wakes, senses her presence, and steps out, where she is already having breakfast, and greets him. He slams the door angrily, making her frown. As usual, she drives to school, noticing his cold, scared expression. Instead of stopping, she continues driving, leaving him shocked. She finally stops the car under the cherry blossom tree and calls Senpai about Fusuka's absence. After thanking him, she hangs up and plucks a tree leaf from his hair while he watches her in shock. At the forest review, she happily walks but suddenly jolts, thinking she spotted something. Exhaling in relief, she realizes it's just a frog. Turning to warn him, she freezes. He stands a few meters away, growling with vampire teeth at the frog. She quickly apologizes and offers to hold his toy, taking it gently. Reaching the tall stairs, she cheerfully tells him their destination is near. He looks annoyed at the height, sighs, and climbs slowly. Step by step, upon arriving, he is mesmerized by the stunning lake view. Sitting happily on the bench, she shares how often she visits this spot. Noticing his attention, she glances at her arm and confirms the scar from his bite, reminding them to be careful. As the cool, fresh air blows, she watches the conversation about happiness and thinks about how she wants to make him happy, spending time together, being social, enjoying activities, and sharing moments that make him smile. But she is shocked when he quietly asks her not to die. She immediately remembers how she shouted at him when she asked him to make friends, warning he would be alone after her death. She becomes speechless. Feeling guilty and wanting to explain, she finds no words and simply raises her hand politely to greet him, which surprises him. Seeing his relaxed, happy expression, she blushes and feels joy. Excited, she asks him for any wish, promising to fulfill it since she can, but when he says he wants her to stop drinking alcohol, she is shocked again. Later, at Ryoko's home, she is shocked to learn that Suzuka has really stopped drinking, while she hesitantly smiles, reminding herself that it's only a 3-week promise. She teases him gently as Fuzuk worries about his health. She changes the topic and asks about Fuzuk again. When she informs him about Fuzuk's absence from school the next day, they plan to go out. Shinya reluctantly apologizes for not being able to do anything for her, but she happily dismisses it, saying that he is trying on his own to find a solution. Noticing his expressions, she immediately realizes his hunger. She quickly brings him into a room and closes the door. Suddenly, she jolts with pain as he bites her and starts gulping her blood. As night falls, she watches him drinking and, curiously, asks if her blood tastes different from alcohol. Suddenly, Ryoko opens the door. She jumps in fear, shouting and covering him to keep his blood drinking a secret. She immediately signals him to stay back. Seeing her shocked expression, she awkwardly explains that she was just trying to help him sleep, while Ryoko still looks confused, noticing her pose. In the evening, he is doing his homework. She feels proud of his excellent math skills but is teased for his weak Japanese. Still, she truly admires his confidence in solving the problems. Checking her phone, she suggests he take a rest, since he has no school tomorrow, instead of helping her with her work. He sadly refuses. The next morning they enter the Cherry Blossom Festival. The staff warmly greet her and express their hope to work with her, which she happily agrees to. He, however, feels annoyed by the large, noisy crowd. The festival is full of people. Children excitedly watch the rabbits and peacocks, and some are feeding the horses. She, as part of her job, takes pictures. Then she hands him some animal feed and suggests he try feeding an animal. He moves forward nervously, stretching his hand to feed a goat. She smiles and teases him, saying the animal bites more than he does. After a while, she happily continues taking pictures of the cherry blossoms, while he just stands beside her. Suddenly, a dog bites and grabs his frog toy. Dashing away, he quickly follows it, while she stays busy taking pictures. When she finally turns around, she is shocked to see him missing. On the other side, the dog's owner apologizes and returns his stuffed toy, while the dog pants from running so fast. As the lady tries to pet him, he gets scared, steps back, and walks away with a worried face through the crowded festival. After walking for a while and seeing her nowhere, he becomes very anxious, pacing near the baby animal section. Meanwhile, she rushes through the crowd, searching for him in every direction. Her legs ache, and worry grows inside her. When she sees a child crying and hugging their mother, she desperately fears that he might be sad and alone. While walking, he becomes frightened when suddenly a huge stuffed animal costume, with a person inside, appears in front of him. The figure bows humbly and flaps its wings, trying to make him happy, but Fusuka is so scared that he dashes forward at full speed, trips over a metal grate, and falls to the ground. She is still searching for him, panting heavily, when she finally reaches the spot and asks someone if they have seen Fusuka. At first, she feels worried when the costumed figure steps in front of her, but it kindly points her in Fusuka's direction. She humbly thanks him and moves forward. He sits on the bench, looking desperately and emotionally at his torn, stuffed frog. At that moment, she arrives, panting from exhaustion as she searches for him. She kneels down, worried, when he immediately shows her the torn frog, explaining that he fell, which caused the toy to rip. She smiles, admiring how the stuffed toy protected him from injury, and promises to fix it. Now both of them sit on the bench. Exhausted, she asks him not to go anywhere again, but he refuses to admit that he left her, calmly denying it. Her frustration grows, especially since she had been nearby taking pictures while he wandered off. Their debate ends when the staff excitedly announces to the kids that the petting show with the chicks and guinea pigs is about to start. Although she tries to stop him, but she is surprised when Fusuka suddenly grabs her hand and starts running in one direction. He manages to catch up just in time and insists they take a short rest in the forest. A few days ago, when Ruri-san was very concerned, she visited the doctor. Although the doctor reassures her that Fusuke's condition is not dangerous, they also suggest visiting a larger hospital. Seeing him so scared and anxious, she immediately refuses, affectionately tapping her son's head to comfort him. Back on the bus, she held her son on her lap and apologized for the scary hospital visit, but seeing him calmly resting his head on her shoulder, she felt relaxed too. That night at home, Ruri felt excited after receiving a call about her plans for the next day's birthday celebration. Noticing her son watching her with curiosity, she happily hugged him, said goodbye, and ended the call. While ending the call, Suzuka-san placed the phone on the car seat, looking gloomy. Back at home, Ruri-san showed Fusuke the pictures and told him about Suzuka-san, explaining how she had helped Ruri with her work. She happily shared that her wish had been fulfilled and praised Suzuka for being amazing. When Fusuke suspiciously asked if she was more amazing than her, she just smiled. After completing all the birthday celebrations, Ruri happily advised him that she would return around 3 p.m. and reminded him to take care of the house while she was away. After she left, he started playing with his toys, then reading a book, but kept glancing worriedly at the clock. First it showed 3:15 p.m. Then, as the hours passed, his concern grew. By 11 p.m., after waiting so long, he finally fell asleep on the sofa, clutching his stuffed toy tightly around 1 a.m. The next morning he woke up again, pulling back the curtains, but found his mother still nowhere to be seen. The day passed, yet she never returned. One night, he panicked and woke up from sleep after hearing voices outside. Looking through the curtains, he noticed a car and became extremely worried. He quickly closed the curtains, hugged his frog tightly, and hid in the wardrobe. Then he heard someone opening the door, and footsteps came closer, frightening him even more. When he heard someone calling his mother's name, he nervously peeked from the wardrobe door. There stood Suzuka, crying badly. She noticed a stuffed toy outside and walked over to pick it up, but when she opened the closet door, she was shocked to see him inside. With a mix of curiosity and concern, she asked loudly about him, but he recognized her and, calling her by name, asked about his mother. She realized he was Ruri-san's son and immediately gave him a sympathetic look. She then lit a candle in front of her picture with him. She looked at him happily, but seeing his confused and scared expression made her worried. Finally, she humbly tapped his head. This annoyed him even more, but when she noticed his unusual reaction was calmer than before, she felt relieved, realizing he was not acting strangely this time. After that, she started spending more time with him. Days passed quickly as she played with him, took him traveling, and even allowed him to drink her blood. She helped him sleep and bought some toys for him. One day, while she was working on her laptop and feeling very tired, she sighed. He was playing with his toys when she hit him with a ball. She quickly removed the curtains and, with excitement, told him about an exercise he could do. Then she went into the garage to look for the sports equipment that she remembered Ruri-san had bought to play with her. She finally found all the boxes, while he watched her in surprise. Happily, she picked up a basketball basket, explaining how she had bought it for Suzuka. She cleaned it and set it up as a makeshift hoop. Then, professionally tapping the ball on the ground, she ran toward the board and hit it skillfully. She looked back proudly, but saw him keenly watching and asked about other sports equipment. She happily showed him the shuttlecock and gave him a racket. She hit the shuttlecock with her racket, instructing him to hit it back. But it accidentally struck him on the head. She just smiled and explained that he didn't need to hit it perfectly, just strike the shuttlecock. Next time, he hit it again by mistake, so seeing that he wasn't quite getting the points, she decided to play with him freely, without any rules. Suzuka also remembered the day Ruri-san bought a talking frog for Fusuke-kun, thinking he might like it. Suzuka was surprised because he had never shared his feelings before. His mother handed the frog to him and suggested he try speaking to it, showing how the frog mimicked whatever he said. Ruri-san happily showed Suzuka his brilliant 100% result, hugging him and praising his achievement. Suzuka, teasingly, mentioned that she had won an award too. Ruri happily opened her arms to hug her, but she immediately, with a blushing face, politely declined, saying she didn't mean to show off. As summer arrives, it's unbearably hot outside. While sitting as usual, Fusuke is happily drinking blood from her arm, but suddenly stops when one of his teeth breaks. At first, it scares her, but realizing he'll get a new one soon, she checks all his teeth and notices they are all wiggly. She decides to celebrate, but seeing that he can't drink blood makes him worried. Around 11 a.m., she gets a call from work. Seeing him playing quietly, she informs him that she'll be out and expects to return around 6 p.m. She advises him to take care of the house, but when she notices his scared face, he's never been alone for so long. She tries to reassure him and finally comes up with an idea. Now, both of them stand in front of Ryoko's place. She asks Ryoko to look after him, telling her to just give him water and food if he wants it. Fusuke, trusting her, hands over all his stuffed toys. She happily agrees, promising to call in case of an emergency. Waving him goodbye, she moves out. A few minutes later, he sits nervously by the window. Ryoko happily takes his picture and sends it to Suzuka, showing how he is already waiting for her. He stares at a sleeping cat, already bored, when suddenly a brown-haired kid bursts into the room, holding a toy gun and calling Ryoko to go to the river. Fusuke, scared, hides himself. Ryoko asks him to get permission from his mother before going outside. Genki happily tells her that his mother has no problem if he goes out with Ryoko. She smiles and politely declines, saying she has to take care of Fusuke-kun. Genki immediately grabs his hand, trying to convince him to go out, which scares him even more. Ryoko quickly steps in, politely telling Genki not to grab anyone, which surprises and frightens them both. Even though Genki keeps insisting, Ryoko happily refuses, explaining that Fusuke only goes outside with Suzuka. After a while, Fusuke finally agrees, and they walk toward the river wearing their summer hats. But seeing his sad face, Genki feels guilty when she dismisses it, realizing that he normally does look this gloomy. Finally, they arrive at the river. Seeing his excitement bubbling over, she advises him to be careful. She also suggests that Fusuke go into the water, handing his frog toy to her. But seeing that he isn't quite ready, she spreads a picnic sheet on the ground. He finally places the toy on the sheet, covering it with his hat like it's a tiny, safety-conscious passenger before stepping into the water. Watching him, Genki excitedly asks about his age, but before he can answer, she interrupts, telling him Fusuke's name and that he is also the same age as Genki. Hearing this, he smiles and shoots the water gun. The water bullet bounces back and hits his head, making him laugh nervously, thinking he's perfectly fine now. Then he suggests that Fusuke try the water gun too. At first, he is scared, but he holds it anyway. Genki carefully instructs him on how to use it. Noticing how much they are enjoying themselves, she smiles and takes a picture to send to Suzuka. Seeing the photo, Suzuka is shocked that Fusuke has a water gun in his hands instead of his usual stuffed frog. While the kids play, they suddenly spot a rhinoceros beetle on a tree. Genki gets excited but looks gloomy. He forgot to bring his net. Determined, he tries to climb the tree to catch it, but his foot slips. He grabs the trunk for support, only to tumble to the ground, scraping his hand. Seeing blood on Genki's hand, Fusuke's large vampire-like eyes light up. He gently pushes Genki down, immediately holding and locking his hands. Seeing this strange and tense scene, Genki starts crying, and Ryoko quickly calls Suzuka for help. Back at Ryoko's place, Genki stares at his bandaged hand while Ryoko feels guilty and apologizes to his mother. But his mother happily dismisses it, saying getting hurt is just part of his daily routine. Suddenly, both of them freeze at the sound of a car horn outside. They look toward the door, but no one seems to be entering. Ryoko, now a little worried, opens the door, only to see Suzuka bending down on the floor. Concerned, she asks if he's all right. Suzuka immediately stands up, reassures her, and enters the home. Inside, Ryoko introduces Suzuka to the next-door neighbor, Genki's mother, Takara-san. Despite Genki being injured, Fusuke seems much more scared than Genki. Without waiting for a proper explanation, he quickly asks about Fusuke and rushes toward the room. This sudden burst of energy leaves both ladies, and especially Genki, looking flustered and worried. She quickly opens the door, and finding no one there, she immediately checks the closet. Seeing him hiding inside and squeezing his stuffed toy, looking very worried, she gently brings him out and sits him down, noting how hot it is. Then she opens the window so a cool breeze can come in and uses a hand fan to give him some air. Then she suddenly whispers that Fusuke bit Genki, but seeing his strange expression, she angrily turns to him. Fusuke opens his mouth, showing his broken teeth. Just then, Genki enters, firmly denying that Fusuke bit him. Seeing their confused faces, Genki excitedly explains that Fusuke-kun is an oni who eats humans, but not just any oni. He's a masked blood demon who is actually friendly to humans. Since Fusuke was raised by a human, he is a human-friendly masked blood demon. Genki then seriously shares that when he fell from the tree and cut his hand, he was scared Fusuke might eat him. But thankfully, Fusuke held back, proving he is a good oni who values life. Ryoko, with an embarrassed smile, tries to deny it, but Genki, acting like a little wise adult, gently stops her and whispers, "Not to worry, he will keep it a secret." Ryoko smiles back, both amused and hopeful that he really will keep this oni secret. After dinner, they are playing together when Genki excitedly opens the door and invites them to watch the fireworks outside. Bright sparks light up the sky. As Genki and his family play happily, Suzuka and Fusuke watch them, smiling. She teasingly nudges Fusuke, saying making friends will make school easier, while he looks a bit sad. Suddenly, Genki offers her a fire stick and suggests Fusuke try one too. Seeing his scared face, she smiles, holds his hand, and helps him light it from Genki's stick. Fusuke hesitates at first, but soon laughs and joins in the fun, enjoying the fireworks with a little sparkle of bravery. The next day, after finishing the laundry and putting away all the actual clothes, she suggests that he shouldn't force himself to eat. But seeing his empty dishes, he's already finished every bite, makes her so happy. Even though he has no other choice because of his missing teeth, he still eats cheerfully, and that little determination warms her heart. After cleaning the whole house and folding all the laundry and blankets, she feels exhausted. She lies down on the bed to take a short rest and soon falls asleep. That evening, he comes over holding his stuffed frog and lies down beside her. The next morning, she wakes up to the sound of her phone ringing. Shocked, she immediately sits up, but seeing him looking at her, she quickly apologizes for not realizing he was napping with her. Stretching their bodies and yawning together, she searches for the phone and sees it's Ryoko-san calling. Excitedly agreeing with her, he hands the phone to her. She reminds him about Genki, inviting him to go outside to the festival. At the festival, the crowd is huge, filled with all sorts of delicious foods. Genki excitedly waves and points the way. The ladies are happy to see his respect and care for Fusuke, and he happily walks with him to buy some masks. The ladies wave happily as they stop by a food stall. While walking, Genki chats excitedly, and she advises him to be careful with his coins. At the mask shop, he buys one, and grabbing Fusuke's hand, suggests they run forward. Ryoko feels worried, but seeing Fusuke's calm, unafraid expression as he lets go of her hand to walk with Genki, she stops in surprise. She wants to call him back, but seeing him happily observing the festival with Genki, she just watches him quietly, feeling a mix of concern and admiration. Suddenly, a lady accidentally bumps into her, apologizing. He feels a little weird about it, but seeing him return to her side, she smiles and taps his head. Thinking he's getting used to the crowd so easily, she also smiles at Genki, who looks adorable after wearing the lion mask. Then they spot a toy shop filled with spinning balls, toy guns, and extra fun surprises. She feels happy seeing him enjoying himself. After a while, she excitedly eats a snack while drinking a beverage. Ryoko tries to stop her from drinking, but she explains that it's alcohol-free, making both girls laugh. They watch him play with Genki, amazed at how independent he's grown. He used to need help with everything. Her sister teases her, saying she'll be alone again with no boyfriend if she keeps getting distracted. Their conversation pauses when he casually holds up a huge bug for them to see. She screams in fright, telling him to get rid of it, while he grins innocently. After spending the whole day at the festival, they finally drive back home. She feels relaxed, seeing him calmly sleeping on the back seat. But upon arriving, she notices a man standing outside and becomes suspicious. She gets out of the car and asks about him. The man respectfully bows and asks about Minu-san, explaining that he had dated Minu-san a little while ago. Fuzuk, still in the car, looks at the man curiously through the window, tilting his head as if trying to figure out what's going on.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.